Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Bob. And shiver my timbers, and gosh and begolly, what is love? Well, most important from our point of view, love is the great maker, God, whatever you want to call it, Yahoo, and whatever you name give it, it is that which giveth our life, or the prana that comes into us that animates us in a spiritual way, right? But because we're in this meat puppet, this avatar, we can get, because of the hormones and the chemistry and the illusion of ego that's all around us, we can get into this. I saw this on YouTube and I found it quite interesting. I thought I'd share it with you. And this was made in the 1920s, like 100 years ago. And the Lord said, remember my name. What is that name? Love. Our Father who art in heaven, meaning the great maker who is not readily seeable but is everywhere. And what is that name but love? And that name motivates us not to drink, steal, cheat, lie, kill, harm people, be mean. These are all egocentric, narcissistic, and then leading into sociopathic motifs. You know, I was reading the Bible. I read the Bible all the time, and I find it meditative prayer, right? And the two meditative prayers that I give you as mantras or meditations are conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, Om. Right? Take that big breath in. Conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, Om. Conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, Om. And now, before you start anything, you do that 3 times. And you will have conscious intent in whatever your endeavor is. You're driving your car, doing your homework, um, playing the guitar, or whatever, right? But you have this conscious intent. And that conscious intent is to do your best. Now, you're not perfect, can't be perfect, but you can do your best. And when you do your best, you're in love's co creation, meaning you are that reflection of God that the burning bush said to Moses. And Moses said, "What's your name?" And the burning bush did not say, "I am who I am," because only Popeye says that. No, he said, "I am a work in progress, and you are," meaning humanity, "are a reflection of my deeds." And so you look at, you know, I like the Old Testament in a lot of ways. Acts, and here's a guy who's been dissed, you know, he's in the light of God's love, and then God tests him and just tests him and tests him. And Job never loses his faith, right? He just keeps saying, God loves me. There's a reason for this. I don't know what it is. It'll work out. I know it. I have faith because I have love in my heart, which is representation of God. And I couldn't have that love in my heart if I was whining, right? If I was pleading for sympathy. And sympathy is not is a egocentric motif. Empathy, that's what Jesus has, right? And Jesus has been around in the beginning of the beginning and beginning. You go look at Saul, right? And of the 2 brothers, you know, and one is going away and then comes back, and one brother says, "Hey, give me a hand here." And that brother who's asking the one who's come back to he hasn't treated his brother well. He's been mean and cruel and stolen and cheated and lied, and yet his brother helps him out without any expectation of anything, right? And I've gone through my life doing that, and you know, my first wife said, "You treat everyone like you know you love them," and I said, "I do." Right? Well, what about me? I'm married to you. You know, I should be special. I said, "Well, I love you, and you are special, and we have a special relationship, but I'm still." And she goes, "You trust everybody. You know, they take advantage of you." I said, "Well, not really, because in the end it kind of works out, and either they learn a lesson that is needed, or they keep doing it and it doesn't turn out well, right? And so in the Old Testament, like in Sodom and Gomorrah, right? God did not turn those folk into a pillar of salt. They did by their actions. God did not do it. Right? God, and the wrath goes, "Oh, you hurt my feelings. Oh, you're not doing what I'm telling you to." And no, it was like the act of that. Whereas that cousin of the mean brother, he comes back and again helps his cousin or whatever. It's not his brother per se, but and then the king of that neck of the woods basically says, "Oh, these people are attacking us. We have to save the people of Sodom and Gomorrah." And so he goes out and he does it. And that king goes, "Well, that's good, but why don't you take all the bling? I'll keep the people, right?" And he goes, "No, I don't want any of it," because he didn't want to be entangled with that materialist world, right? And there was another king there, right? Um, Starts with an M, and he was a king and a priest, right? And he blessed that lad, and he was and that's the thing about the Old Testament. Time after time after time in the Old Testament, Jesus is, you know, foretold, or not so foretold, but this king was just like Jesus, but he wasn't, right? He was, a physical character that if you are a scholar enough, you can um, find him and where he was and that situation. And you see, he was speaking of, not saying, "Hey, this guy Jesus is coming." No, he was acting like Jesus. He was doing what Jesus came to do, in that Jesus came to give us an example, and this guy was following Jesus' example before Jesus showed up, at least in the New Testament. But that shows us that Jesus has been here forever. In the beginning, all things were dark, and then, bango, it was light, right? And basically, if you look at the mystery schools and look at the esoteria of Christianity, and not of the the Jewish Kabbalah, Christian, mystery schools, Islam, whatever they got, even Buddha and Vishnu and a few others, they have their mystery schools, right? The esoteric. And what is the It's not devil worship, it's hidden knowledge, right? The thing is, not if you're the magician that goes in and there's like, "Oh, there's a dark magic and light magic." No, no, it's magic is magic. And basically, you're not supposed to use it. It's a tool, right? If you use it to serve your ego, not good. If you use it within co-creation, that's what it's supposed to be. And that's what we're supposed to be, enlightened beings, right? We're supposed to move forward. The burning bush said to Moses, "I'm a work in progress," right? Meaning there is no end, right? And if you are expecting to have a mercantile, transactional thing with God, "Oh, I checked all the boxes here, so I go to the gated community, right? Go to those golden gates, right?" And there are no golden gates. All it is a path, and you follow it. And it's trying and difficult, and those folks who are addicted to things, right? And I've been very blessed in that I have a personality that tries everything, wants to know everything, looks at everything, right? So I don't believe anything. I don't disbelieve anything, right? Other thing, I try everything, back when I was 22 and I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I got this job that was like, and there were other people who at the employment agency got there. And this one sweetie in her nurse's outfit, we both are like, when you got the job, uh, to show that you were one of the crew, you got a member's jacket from Mr. Bunny. And inside it was two hidden pockets. And one was an envelope with 5 Benjamins, or whatever your percentage of whatever he was getting. and that was like the bonus thing before you started jobbing, and you signed all the papers, and you've been accepted, and you're going to work Monday, and it was Friday or Thursday. And everyone who got a job that day, there was a party. He had a backroom party room where all the goodies were, right? And in the other pocket, he seemed to know what your predilection was. And so in mine, I had a little thermidor with a bunch of blunts with lamb's breath, and boy, they were tasty, right? And in this little nursery, and she had a white uniform with the white shoes and the hat and the little button that said she was a RN. And in her little package was a nice little leather folder with a bunch of envelopes folded nicely with white powder in it, right? And so anyway, I went into that room, and there all these people, and they were like all wearing their members jackets, and some guys looked like they were going to be truck drivers, and some guys, people had no idea what I was going to go do because that was a mystery. And she was wearing her uniform, and she was kind of looking around, and she had a little cocktail and had a little table with goodies, and I also we all kind of got not only the members jacket, but we got a really nice bag of sorts, right? Girls got handbags. I got a nice little oh, what some people would call a carpet bag. A bag that you kind of it's not a pack, but it slings over your shoulder, right? And it's very comfortable, and you can carry a good deal of stuff, right? And I had that, and in it were a few other little interesting, like kind of another nice little bag, insulated bag, and I had a bottle of wine and wine opener and a nice wheel of cheese and nice thing of dark bread and some meat, not so much pepperoni, but another kind of meat like that. And so I could go have a nice little picnic somewhere. And in hers, she had, other things. And anyway, so she had her little bag, and she had like a flask, right? And so she was knocking it back. And I said, how come you're not just taking it from the free bar? And she goes, well, free bar is cheap crap. Taste this. And it was like something special, almost ambrosia, because it was more than alcohol, because it had a bite. And I said, what else is in that thing? And she goes, mm. Right? And I had a little something else, something like THC or something like angel dust or something like something. And because it kind of mellowed you out, but also made you really awake. It was quite interesting. And anyway, so we're sitting over the corner, and I get myself a little glass of something, something from the cheap bar, and another glass, like a highball glass, and she's pouring it in there, and it seems to be never ending, right? So within a good 40 minutes, and there's a band there, a DJ, and they're playing music, and she and I are shaking it, and we're getting pretty almost intimate. And Mr. Bunny sitting over there, Mr. Bunny weighed like 9,000 pounds. He looked like a bunny, blue bunny. His hair was blue, right? He had this blue polyester suit, and he was white as death, right? And he, like I said, probably weighed 9,000 pounds. I mean, he looked like a well-dressed Jabba the Hutt, right? And he looked like a bunny, right? And on his suit, he had a little bunny button, right? And I had no idea what the fuck that was, whether it was just sewn on or it was a hole there where that little thing popped out. But anyway, this was like not your average scene. And I was 23, and I had already been part of the Theosophical Society. I had already been part of a number of interesting mystery schools that were more technically adroit, like the Thule Society. And anyway, so I was just so I was informed, right? I kind of knew what it was. Other people were just getting themselves whacked. Now, the girl, she was something else, right? And she was like almost like a temple priestess, right? But she was wearing the nun's outfit, right? So anyway, we kind of got. She goes, "I got a car." I said, "Oh, that's great. I don't." And she goes, I just came in. I came from Chicago, and I got my license changed here. And then I saw Mr. Bunny. I got a really good job." I said, "Great." She goes, "I'm working in a hospital." "Great. Oh, that's great." I said, I'm working out. with this high voltage company, and she had no idea what that was. But anyway, she goes, "I have no place to stay." I said, "Well, I have a really nice place, but let's go out." It's only like 7. It's still light out because it was like getting towards. It was springish, right? And well, no, it was already September, but it was still you know sky. So we we had our little nosh. We didn't drink everything in a bottle because it didn't seem to get empty. But we spent, we smoked one of my blunts between us, and we danced really evocatively. And there was a place. She goes, I know I'm just come here, but I know this place called the Tender Trap. Do you know where that is? I said, yeah, yeah, I do. And it was a blues club, right? And so went to blues club. She's wearing her uniform. We walk in, and it was quite interesting because everyone seemed to know her. Who knew? Anyway, so I we had a great old night there. We went back in the green room and met all the boys and had a great time and danced and listened to some really good blues. And then around 1 or 2 o'clock, I said, "So you getting tired yet?" And she goes, "Boy, I haven't really had a shower in 3 days. I could use one." I said, "Well, I got it perfect. I had a really nice shower." Because this was I got picked up on 25, the interstate going north south into Mexico, and I got picked up near Santa Fe, the city of bourgeois fences and gates. And this guy's driving to Albuquerque. So where you going, kid? It was like 2 in the morning, and there's nobody on the highway. And I saw the lights, so I walked down past the sign and said, "Do not hitchhike on this road. It totally gets lost." So there's nobody there except I'm watching these lights come down, and I kind of stand next to a sign so I could get behind it if it was a cop, because you can tell cops, before they get to you. But this guy, no, this was like. So I kind of got out there and put my thumb out, and he went about 300 yards past me and hit the brakes. Get in, kid. And it was a guy, and he looked like Santa Claus. I was 23. He looked like he was, at least 65, if not older. He had big white. He kind of looked like me, and he was the doctor, right? And he was Swedish, Spanish, and Hopi, right? And he's coming, and Chicano, and he was coming back to where his mom had lived, and he had grown up as a little kid, and then during World War II, he was taken into the military, and he from um, Cornell, and he was a linguist, and he knew Japanese, and he knew a lot of language, but he also knew Hopi and Navajo, and he was one of the first code talkers, right? And he looked like he was a white guy, right? So they made him an officer, and they put him not in charge of the code talkers, but he was like third or second in charge, and he had a whole bunch of he was in charge of the guys, right? All the organization were majors and colonels up there. He was a major. They made him a major, and so but he went off on the landing crafts, and he went around and made sure everything was working. And he had a couple of guys who were really good radio guys. So anyway, that's another story for another time. But he picked me up, and he said, "I'm going back to Albuquerque. My mom's just died, and she had a general store, and she had six traditional Vega um, Spanish Hopi Navajo houses, and that's like kind of a mud house. With Vegas are these big, gigantic trees, aspens, and they make the roof up there like a dirt roof, and it's really insulated, really sealed, and you can grow stuff on your roof, and you basically have an open center, and you have all these rooms around that go into the open center, and then this breezeway that goes through, and so you have like, you know, four big rooms on this side, four big rooms on this side, that breezeway. And those little rooms can be little apartments or, two big apartments or one big house. Anyway, and he said they're like falling apart. They have no electricity, no water, no septic. My mom used to rent them out, but then people wanted a little more. upgraded stuff, and she didn't do it, so she just kind of used it to store stuff. And so, you a handy guy? I said, yep, I got my hand tools right here. And so he drove me there, and I looked at it, and he said, hey, if you fix this stuff up, you can stay here the rest. You're gonna have one of these things. So, I fixed all six up. I fixed his, store up. And he was, you know, for a guy past 65, he was somewhat handy. I mean, I did, everything. And we got some of the Chicano guys who wanted the store to get back. And when they saw that we were fixing up this, they might get a place to live. So we did that. And so within 3 months, I had fixed everything up. And I had the nicest one. It was like in the best, not so much, they were all kind of the same, but this one was the best place, got the best sun, was the most out of the wind. And when it got really cold, it was, it actually stayed warm without even having a fire because, it was built more into this hill. The others were kind of up. And so the weather could get all around. This one didn't have a breezeway all the way through. It just had this thing, and I put a door there. And then I found a guy who was a student of Buckminster Fuller, and we put a Bucky dome on top of the circle, and I had the biggest circle. So I had a garden growing food all year round, and Doc like that, and he would come, and he was close to the general store in the back above, and the road was up there, and it was came down into these little houses, and the five were like kind of semi-exposed to the what was that west of Albuquerque, west, southwest of Kirkland, and it was a mesa, right? And now it's like covered in malls and stuff. But that was, there were farms out there, ranches out there, and where we were was where the Chicano Indian neighborhood was. It was like the hood, right? So after 3 or 4 months, got to be November. So I probably got there end of around August. So August, September, October, November, I was kind of finishing. And I kind of got, so October and November. I mean, really, I got it pretty much done August and September, and the finishing work was October, and November was, the punch list. But I was just hanging out. And by that time, I got to know everybody in the hood, and I was fixing people's stuff, and they paid me off in boo, right? Which, as a young man, that's all I needed, and good boo too, right? And so anyway, um, it was nice. I'd go play Go with Doc and chess and talk about theology because he had more. He actually had more degrees than a thermometer. I just tell people that because I was a itinerant scholar. He actually went Cornell, Chicago, Stanford, Harvard, MIT. Um, where else? He went to Oxford. Where else did he go? A few others. Well, he got degrees. I mean, he had a lot of doctorates. That's why people called him Doc. Because I'm a double doctor. He was a quadruple, a multi doctor, So, and he was great because he frigging been there, done it, knew everything. It was amazing, right? And once I kind of told him my pedigree, he kind of knew that stuff too. So we really had a good time together. And so um, around November, heading towards Christmas, and still it was winter, but not really bad winter. Really bad winter out in that neck of the woods in the desert is like, you know, after January 5th. That's when, January, February, March, April, May, it starts to get warm. But February, March, ooh, baby. Let's see. Martyred Artist, I'm watching and having lunch. Okay. He and I had a nice conversation last night. We were talking about love's co-creation. Let's see if we can get him on the phone. Right? Says how many people are there too? Right? Come on. How about some thumbs up? It's oh look at that. 20 to 30 minutes. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with their Sensei Al Bob and phone guests. Let's see. Do, 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 do. Let's see. Here's Margaret Artist. Let's see if he picks up the phone. And the phone actually rings. Miraculous. What goes out in the deep green? We don't always get a call. Up, up, up. There he is.
It's showtime.
It's showtime.
How you motherfuckers doing?
They're doing great.
That's good, man. I was having my lunch, and now I was going to have my nap, and you called me.
Yep. Well, you said you were there, so I thought I'd give you a buzz.
Oh, I brought this turmoil onto myself.
You got it. And isn't that always the way it is?
Correct. Well, everyone gets what they want. Whether they
know it or not.
Whether they're awake about what they want, that's another story.
Mm-hmm.
If we let the unconscious mind run without some kind of oversight or discipline or practice, we'll get what we want, and then we'll be like, wait, I don't want this.
Right.
Pretend it's a victim and play that cycle out.
Right.
That's, I think, a very important lesson.
And that's why my mantra is conscious aware I am. Conscious aware I am. Conscious aware I am. Right?
That's correct.
And then to move forward in that, you are conscious intent. I am conscious intent. You take that awareness and you plug in intent
to manifest.
Yep, exactly.
As a man thinketh, so shall he be.
Yep.
The listening audience, there's several books. I'm going to mention one of them if I can find it. It's close by. Dr. Robert Anthony. Oh no, that's not it.
No.
that's a good one though.
No.
That's the one I should actually be looking for myself.
Right.
The Power of Your Subconscious Mind.
Oh yes, that's quite a good
book. Dr. Joseph Murphy.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
Yep.
Not too many people know about that book, but
Yep.
it is available. You can get used copies of it.
Yep.
Probably some kind soul may have even put it up as a PDF online.
Yep.
It talks about how, if sort of untrained, which most of us are, we don't recognize that. We default to victim mode, like I said before.
And not only that, we open ourselves up to the darker side, which is there. And see, what people don't realize, they think things are bad or good. No, they just are. It's how they affect us. That is what it is. And the bad can often be, and you can speak to this, the vehicle you need most to get your act together.
Well, I mean, it's the shadow, right? If you want to use the Jungian
motif
terminology or motif. The shadow, young soul folks need to embrace the shadow, and what the shadow is. Perceived negative things of ourselves that we hide from ourselves and from others. And humor is a great way, I think, for me personally.
Yeah.
To laugh at myself and my shortcomings, character defects, if you want to use this 12-step term, and just be like, like somebody asked me, oh, well, how did you create that? That was not a screensaver, but I do a lot of Zoom stuff. I took something from a picture, because you can do virtual backgrounds on Zoom. And they asked, and I said, well, because I have he said, no, why did you do that? And I said, because I have an obsessive nature. And I laughed. Because I hunted this thing down, and
it's not so, if you have a artist, you have a artist nature.
And I laughed. I'm like, yeah, well, that's I'm locked and loaded right now. I'm trying to look at this. But when you're kind of conscious of where I am, as you say, and you're like, oh shit, I'm doing something kind of silly here. Oh, that's where that's coming from. And we can either abandon it or continue in the behavior, maybe at our peril, or maybe not. Maybe there's something to be gained.
Well, the peril comes when we serve it. Instead of serving love's co-creation, we serve the shadow.
Correct.
That's when we get
as a tool to be used, not to let to be used by,
Right, exactly.
to use. And it gives us great insight into who we are.
Right.
And
And
it's okay.
which
And
is
it's
one of
not,
the
it's not
keys to
scary.
psychotherapy and self-help and all the rest, because you have to
Well,
face
Jesus
all
said
these
it quite
things.
clearly. Get thee behind me, Satan.
Right.
Now, people would say, like, often would get confused. Well, what did he mean? What did he mean? Like he was actually behind him? Like he wants to
Right.
be behind him? I said, no, it was an internal struggle he was having. Because, he separated from the tribe for a minute. He wanted some contemplation, wanted, some solitude to kind of know where his next move was going to come from. And the shadow, Satan, or the adversary,
Right.
that it lies within all of
The
us,
duality.
duality, said, "Hey, you could be a celebrity. You could, I could give you this and I could give
Yep.
you that." And he's like, "No, I'm not interested." Not too dissimilar from the Buddha under the Bhakti tree,
Hmm.
who is just trying to maintain his balance, who is being bombarded with sort of demonic forces, if you want to use that metaphor. But if anything, just distractions, worldly distractions.
Right.
And he just sits there and he just touches the ground under the back bhakti tree until all those thoughts pass and fade away. And what remains is true beauty.
Luminescence of
Yeah,
love.
and there you are.
Yeah.
So that's I'd rather be silly. This is too serious.
Yeah. Silly is one of the better tools, physical
Ah,
tools
absolutely.
of enlightenment, because you look at the fool in the king's court. He's the only
Yeah,
guy who can talk squat to the king,
correct.
because that fool usually has a stick that has two faces, and one's the fool and the other is the magician, and that stick is normally made
Uh-huh.
out of Hollywood.
Right. Hollywood.
Yeah.
The wood from holly tree.
Yeah, that's it. And that's why they call Hollywood Hollywood, because of that.
Magic.
Because in the Greeks, the Shakespeare had the comic and tragic masks. The Greeks
Yes.
put them together, and one side of your head was the frown, and the other was the psychotic
Oh,
smile.
yeah. Hmm.
And that is the material ego world that we have around us, right? And right in the middle is that balance,
Yes.
right? So, and that's what in my business card, I have that face right there. And that was the face of the unipolar corporate state. I was doing a negotiating. All these people were screaming, and there's this one guy. I just looked at him, and his face was changing to 20 different things every minute. And my little left eye that got crushed by a nun and doesn't see like my right eye. I could see that. I could see this. This is what. So I kind of scribbled that on my legal pad and said, that'll be a good image for a business card one day. And it did. And that's what we face every day. And that's why John Boy is the, perfect metaphor for all of this. He is the canary in the coal mine, because he has all the opportunities and talents and skills and etc. to really serve God. And he's into God and Jesus, but you have to serve, not just say that. When you're saying, praise God, praise Jesus, praise God, that's like um, a transactional deal. If I say this enough, I'll get into the gated community of heaven. Right? So
Well, this is where we get the expression "taking the Lord's name in vain,"
you got it.
because it's some people get lost in those terms and they think, "Oh, I'm being blasphemous by taking the Lord's name in vain."
Hmm.
Well, you can take that on board. That's cool, but I think the more truthful paradigm is that you are making a relationship with God, as you said, transaction. I'm expecting God to, jump through a hoop for me.
Right.
And it's not quite like
No.
that. It's more of God
Co-creation.
show me which hoop I should jump through.
Exactly. We serve.
It's more appropriate.
Right.
Serving loves co-creation.
Right. Right.
As the good double doctor, and I don't need to say that twice. Shares with us often.
So the and that's why I like the Old Testament, because it's always giving a primer to what Jesus is. Like
Foreshadowing of Jesus is throughout the Old Testament.
right, and people
The
go, "Oh, it's
riddle
only
is
the
written.
New Testament that we should be reading." No, the Old Testament has all these great. Oh,
Matter of fact, I had my Catholic catechism.
hmm
Now, I don't know if that was typical of all Catholic catechisms back in the 70s and 80s, but when I was coming up, we only had, like, they gave us a book. It was a Bible, and it was a cute little Bible, that had pictures of, like, newspaper headlines, and
right,
it said the good news, because the coming of Christ is
right,
good news. So it only had the New Testament. So when I got older, I was like, well, what? There's a whole other section here, like,
right.
and I remember feeling a little pissed off about that, because I said, wait, they just why did they keep that from me? That's
Right.
not cool,
Because
like,
that's where the
what are you trying to fucking hide?
well, no, the New Testament was written by the Holy Roman Empire. It was an
Correct,
advertising scheme of rebranding, and
correct.
so they took all the
Well,
stuff
the
that
idea
came from
was,
the Old Testament.
let's what is it? Let's have Emperor Constantine,
Right,
who, when he was pretty much up against it in a
right.
battle, created this site. And it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day. The what is it? Conquer in my name is the
Right,
in this name conquer,
right.
and he reported that he was
Incarn
divinely inspired
right,
by Jesus, and he won this decisive battle.
right.
And that's the myth that kind of merged the Romans into absorbing Christianity to as a means of
Rebranding
manipulation
and
and control.
stepping out and taking a onward Christian soldier, right,
Exactly. That's where we get that from.
right. And that wasn't
But I
the
think what's so awesome is that the word itself, it even transcends even the distortions or manipulations that
manipulations, because all language of from the
uh,
Greeks
the
or
truth still comes through, and
right
that's so powerful.
from Babylon, when we lost the ability to communicate with everybody psychically through the collapse of the tower, and that
Yes,
was
the
like a
Tower of
microwave tower, right? And so when that happened, we were all thrown asunder, and
Babel.
and so the word. Interesting thing about the word in Greek, logos, right? And what is logos but the power of understanding love, right? And then the other side of that is eros, and that's experiencing love, and that's why Plato talked about platonic love, meaning, yeah, you can have the hots for somebody, but that's not love. Platonic love is this unbridled a thing in your heart for humanity, because humanity reflects God's logos, understanding. And we've totally blown all of that out the water. I mean, that's just, oh, look, that's what Plato said. Well, that was nice. Let's move on. Where can we make money? And that's kind of what we're fighting right now. That's what we're up against right now. All the wars and the plagues and it's not any different than the last, 4,000 years, give or take. Um, so we're right at a really interesting cross point where humanity can embrace Jesus's unconditional forgiveness and God's unconditional love as one thing, right? And we were talking about it last night, and I said, what needs to be done is to manifest an alternative aesthetic, not that it's brand new, and that thing of you know the good news that Jesus was bringing. Jesus wasn't so much the good news when he said, "Father, last thing, Father, forgive them. They have no idea what they're doing. And then he dies and it is done. Meaning the good news was there was never any mortal sin. That was the rebranding in the New Testament is that we did something wrong, but we didn't. It's again that mechanism of people who are upset in their lives and they have to go, if they really want to heal themselves, they have to go all the way and look at the child within and realize they didn't do anything wrong. So, can you speak to that martyred artist within an aesthetic point of view? Did we lose our man? Did we lose you? Are you there? Well, seems like he's there. We're still connected. We'll see if he comes back. So, let's put my reading glasses on and see what you guys are saying here. Oh, let's see. How do you sound? Bob. Uh, okay. Cadre. Uh, let's see. This is what gets me. Jesus died. We are saved. I know heaven already. See, the thing is, we're in heaven, right? We are here. We are now. We are at it. And we just have to step up to it. Conscious intent I am, conscious awareness I am, right? That is the real deal. So you got to be aware if you want to be in heaven in this life, in this avatar, and this comes up all the time. I'm living out here, cash. I had set things up because I knew that at some point I'd die, but not die, and I'd have a whole bit of life. But I wouldn't be able to continue being the materialist, hedonist, you know, dude I was. I couldn't. I had to stop being the dude. So I was a dude from about 20 to when I died in 2014, which made it I was 64. So you know that was, and so now since then, when I woke up on the gurney going in to get my chest cracked and my legs cut off, I said no, 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 and I said I need my legs, I need my chest the way it is. And but you die, and I said no, no, I just need to lose all this weight, and I need to you know, roll me back in that ICU, keep me alive for a while. And I told the lawyer, listen, go get me. I need a colonic therapist. I need a acupuncturist. I need an herbalist. I need a endocrinologist. I need a person, nutritionist, and a few other things. Besides therapist, right, a chiropractor, and he did. He took me down to his nice hacienda down in the Keys on his little private peninsula. And these people took care of me, right? And they stuck the colonic lady brought her apparatus, set it up, stuck the hose up my butt and pumped everything out, all those to die for chocolate cakes, everything. And then all the rest, everyone did their thing, and I went from like being totally out of balance to like within 2 weeks into a homeostasis that was kind of like this, right? And so I went off and did the negotiations that the desperate lawyer needed, and then he was good enough to bring me back there and pay those people to spend another 6 months working on me to where I was now. Just my homeostasis was kind of like this, right? And then I went back to the deep green, and I spent a good year just all I had there was onions and oatmeal, right? And I had pretty much sold everything before '08, right? And I had a few little bits, but I knew for me to get Roanoke, Carillion's the big gorilla of healthcare, and Roanoke does this all the time. It trades one industry for another giant because back in the turn of the century, the railroads was king, good old Mister Mister Railroad came in and but what Roanoke really was the industrial peg of the railroads, meaning Roanoke Electric Steel had this gigantic that made all the big locomotives. It was the Detroit of locomotives, and when they went into diesel, they were them, and that's why GE went there, right, to make electric. Because that's what a diesel locomotive is big diesel engine hooked to a generator that turns the wheels of the train, and you get unbelievable torque. And that's at the initial vehicles in the world that were hybrids were trolley cars and diesel locomotives, and then Toyota took that technology and turned it into cars. And as a hybrid, that was a great thing. I mean, if we had gone into hybrids like in the '70s with the oil embargo, we'd have a different world. But they were kept, didn't show up until after the year 2000. So because they were allowed to do it because it led into this new electrification of the world, which is another form of putting people in jail. Let's see what happened to our friend. Do 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 do. He's still kind of hooked up there. I don't know what happened. I'm gonna hang up and see what happens. So thank you, Modern Artist. And so I wanted him to talk to what we were talking to about last night. This alternative aesthetic. I've been working on this thing for 40 years, and that was one of the reasons I was the itinerant scholar because I wanted to hit all these amazing ivy covered halls with really amazing people and talk to them about and like drop that pebble. We need an alternative aesthetic, and pretty much guys like what was his name of the CFR? Oh, well, uh, Gary Allen, who wrote None Dare Call It Conspiracy. He that read that book. That's a good primer to what is needed for alternative. Um, what was his name? I can't believe our major teacher. He was the head philosopher, historian, whoop-de-doo at the Council on Foreign Relations. He wrote a book called Tragedy, Hope and Tragedy. I can't believe I forgot his name. And the other, my mentor, was I'm so terrible on names, and these people I'm like my master's teachers. Um, Kluver, Billy Kluver, right? The guy who brought modern art to American, got being one of the guys who was at the Rad Lab who discovered background radiation of the universe. And so all the component parts are here, and all the chaos and stuff that's going on. You go look at you look at what was going on during World War I. We had the Spanish flu. It killed 60 million people. How much did Corona? And they really didn't talk about it at all. They focused on World War I, but the Spanish flu, and they only called it Spanish flu, is because Spain wasn't in World War I, so they had a free press and they wrote about it. But that flu, which is much better known as the 1918 flu or the 1916 flu, because that's kind of started then and then really didn't hit the amazing terribleness until 1919. And it kept going on, once the war had stopped, Russian Revolution occurred, and all these things were pretty much actuated by um, the flu, right? The pandemic, because it killed 60 million. So it killed so many people because they were so close together in the trenches. They all got it and died. Yeah, a lot of people died from getting blown up, but most died of that. So they ran out of soldiers. And so a similar thing is going on in Ukraine. Both, Russia is fighting the war the way Russia fights the war, which is just grinding the enemy down, right? They're really not very good at modern. I mean, everyone thought they got the modern warfare together, but no, they're still fighting the war like they did. I mean, what's going on in Bucha is basically what went on in World War I, right? And so you know, I don't have the exact numbers, but Russia is losing 3 guys to every one, um, that Ukraine is. But Russia, Ukraine has access to maybe 16 million people to fight the war, and Russia has access to like 60 million people to fight the war, right? Ukraine only has the weapons that we give them, and we do this every war that we back. We send a ton of weapons off, and the military guys make a ton of money. But about a third of all those weapons aren't going out in the field. They're being shipped someplace else to start another war someplace else. I mean, that's what happened in Korea. That's what happened in Vietnam. That's what happened in the Mid East. That's what happened with ISIS. That's what happened in Syria. That's what happened in Libya. Was straight up, we just blew the crap out of the place because Muammar wouldn't do what we told him to do. Right? I mean, he was fine to be Muammar until he said, "No, I don't need you now. You know, I have an economy that's not based on you. I'm not really. I could stop selling oil today, and I'm making more money out of the vegetables because he had his own technology. He didn't have Exxon and Kern McGee and Dick Cheney do his oil system like Nigeria has. Poor Nigeria, it's a sad state. And so basically, he could do what he wanted to. And so he took his oil drilling technology and he used it to dig super duper deep wells for water into the aquifer, the deep aquifer that actually is the water that we see on the planet. It's not in the oceans. It's really, we are a water planet, and most of that water's in the middle, right? Or in the one of those shells there. And so basically, that's why we have volcanoes. There's friction to the point where that water turns into steam, which then percolates up through, taking all kinds of stuff with it. And it's like the reverse version of fracking, right? That's what a volcano is. And so we have an unknown situation that has occurred over and over and over again. All we have to do is kind of look at the threads that are there. And the scholastics can't stand it because they go by a textbook that's written by a power structure that they say they're fighting. And they're not, right? And anytime anyone gets it together and sees what's going on and starts, speaking to it, and not just speaking to it, I speak to it, a lot of other people do, and they don't get whacked because that's fine because the power structure needs a loyal opposition, and I more or less am the loyal opposition because I'm not against the corporate structure per se, but when it goes out of balance and it's all egotism and Satanism isn't like the devil running around, a guy with a hooves and red skin and horns. No, that's a manifestation of our psyche. And basically, when our ego gets carried away, when it's all about me, 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 that's Satanism, right? Because you look at, a good example of that is what's his name, 1920s, 30s in England. So above, so below, that guy. Um, basically, that's what happened to him. I mean, he was an interesting. He wanted to know that Spielberg movie, the last Indiana Jones one, where it's in the 50s and they're out at Area 51, and then they end up somewhere in Central or South America with the Crystal Head and all of that. Again, Spielberg really tells you what's going on in the storyline, so you'll be ready to. Oh, that's what it was. We're being prepared. And so the Russian girl, well, she didn't care about socialism or Stalin or communism or the Soviet Union. No, she wanted to know. And that last scene where she's figured it out and she's like enabling all those skulls to come together, and everyone is like back and back and back for the door and getting the heck out of there. Indy, his wife, his son, his one of his teachers, and and then his buddy, who's a deep agent, the English guy, they both heading for the door, and everyone's getting the heck out of there except the English guy. He can't. His greed is too strong, so he's trying to fill his pockets up with the bling, and come on, Larry, let's go, let's get out of here. And anyway, he finally gets out. They get to a place, and everything goes whoosh, and they get shot out. Poor Larry. And the girl, before all of that happens, the girl is like staring up at the crystal head, and the other skulls are coming together, bang, making one creature that looks down at her. And she goes, I want to know. I want to know. I want. Why do you think I'm wearing these? I want to know. And the guy goes, oh, you want to know? So everybody up there, and there are places all over the earth that are like that place, right? In Roanoke, Virginia, there is a place like that. Right around here, there's all over the place. My teacher Archie in Ireland. When I was at university, we spent one spring, summer, and fall traveling the west side of Ireland, and we would find the bee houses, and then we would find the pyramids. And the moron archaeologist said, "No, no, those are burial mounds." And then when they excavated one, they found it to be a pyramid. So they had to chop off the top and build a Disneyland motif burial ground so the tourists could go through that. But the other part that was still actually the working pyramid was off the side. And when I took the rich ladies there, this last time I was in Ireland in '05, I told this rich lady all these stories about Ireland, and she hit the jackpot. Her parents died. She got $5 million, so she's buying all this crap to fill that hole in her heart. And she ran through 5 grand in less than 3 years. She was back at her poor shit self. I mean, her father put a lot of money in the stock market, and she she had left everything alone. She would have gotten a check for 300 grand every year for the rest of her life, even if the market fell down. She left it alone. She would have gotten a check because so much money had gone into that trust fund that even when '08 collapsed and the stock value went down, if she didn't touch it, 2 years later the stock market went right and became right now 20 times more than when it was its best before '08. And that's why there's such a disparagence in the poor. And I started this show out with that little video, right? And that was in from the mid '20s, right? Early '20s, just after World War I. And when we were in the roaring '20s, the boom of the boom of the boom, right? And then we had the bust of the bust of the bust. And still the rich, like my mom, got her juice because she ran Roosevelt Hospital in New York because all the rich guys, their grandparents built that thing. A, so there'd be a hospital take care of them. B, so there was a hospital and a educational system for nurses and doctors. And C, there'd be a hospital for the workers that worked in the factories of those rich people. And those rich people knew that it behooved them to keep their working class semi-healthy, right? Rather than what now we just pour on the gook on the poor working class till they get ridiculously sick by the time they're 30. Me, I took care of myself pretty good, so I didn't die until I was 64, right? But I did have that 10-year little scanty fun time of unbelievable hedonism. I made up for lost time. But I followed, this was a path I was led down, and that's why I'm right now. So stuff is kind of annoying around me. But, last night I prayed and God basically said, don't worry about it. Hey, haven't I always had your back? Oh, yes, you always have had my back. Yes. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. He goes, no, no, no. It's good to have a little doubt, just like Joe, right? So, you know, it's all good. Everything is as it should be, and will turn out. I just had to turn the reins back over to God and Jesus, not like praise God, praise Jesus, praise God. No, I serve God and Jesus. My life is, and I left a little, because John has been trying to get hold of me. Oh, let's see what John is up to. I left him a bunch of positive uh, texts. Oh, put these things on. There we go. Boop ba doop boop boo. Boop ba doo boo boo. Boop ba doop boop boo. Boop ba doop boop boo. Let's see. There he is. Yep, that's the boy.
Please leave your message for 54029.
Okay. Well, he's not receiving any phone calls. So it must be he wasn't inspired. What did I leave him? Let's see. Let's go back to when I left him. Right. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. So let's see. John. Let's see. So back in. What day was it? Boop, 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 boop. Doo, 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 doo. Boop, 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 boop. So back in on Valentine's Day, he said, "You did nothing for me. You took everything. No wonder it says pirate on your car." And then I sent him a little one of those, right? And then on Tuesday, is it cold where you are? Can you come and stay with me? Al, can you stay? And it's Thursday. Actually, let's see. Al, I miss my wife and children and don't know how to be there for her and the kids. And he says, "Who's that young sounding MSN you were talking about nuclear stuff and war when you were a kid? Your dad let you see your Niku explosion with all the creatures from other dimensions, and the guy said there would be a war with aliens on Earth. I can't wait to live in California." Then he goes, "Are you angry with me?" Right after he threw me out, I was there 2 weeks. He threw me out 4 different times. Once I almost got all the way back. Then he begged me to come back, and I kind of came back because I had my car worked on, and the guy who did it, the car was like falling apart, so I had to go back and get it fixed anyway. So I did. And then when he said, "Are you angry with me?" Because he threw me out 4 times, I replied, and this was yesterday, "Oh, John, not angry at you. You're my friend and always will be. And I do not always have a single out. It is very infrequent that I can get a tell." Oh, I'm talking about talking to him because I hadn't talked to him in like 3 weeks because I didn't get a signal, right? I'm trying to, and then he replies, "I'm trying to sell my house. So been hoping to get money so I can go." I mean, he needs to get away, just like all the cockroaches around here, like California and Florida, New Jersey, and Charlotte, and you name it, and they come up here and go, "Oh, things are so terrible," and now things are terrible here, right? All the stuff that they ran away, they brought here. I got worried about Danica and the kids. Are you feeling really good? Can you come and stay with me? Someone drove up to the house randomly in a black, slowly drive around the house. Been so different. Sometime I leave twice a day to let people look at the house or do errands. Oh, that's good. I found a new video editor for my phone. Then I replied, John, I read your text. I know things can be tough, but you have to work with God. Not say, praise Jesus, praise God. No, I said, praise Jesus, pay God, but work with God. Pray with God, for God is love, and that love will heal all things. Our life is not about material things or the people or places. It is about our love for God in co creation. With God's love, all things are possible. The Bible is a tool that helps us understand how to work with God. Reading the Bible is fellowship with God. One should not look to the Bible as a magic 8 ball to get what we want in the material world. Then he replied, I don't want to hear that. I have to sell the house. Now fill it with your garbage. Meaning what I just said. That's filling it with garbage. Not fill it with your garbage, but your garbage, what you say. You are annoying. You didn't help at all. When you came here, other things and other stuff got worse. You cost me money. You are a good friend, but not to be in the house now. But can you come and stay with me? I hate that I was born into this life. I would have enjoyed better had I already gotten to be famous and already dead. I'm sure you will distort what I say into how it can help you. I'd rather be dead. But can you come and stay with me? But I have no plans to kill myself. I have no plans to hurt myself. Others than my mom or do not invite the idea that I would be a good way to sell the house. You don't invite back a slob to sell the house. I spent so much time. I work 18 hours a day, and you're just a slob. You did nothing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say any of that. Can you come and stay with me? My life has felt so bad since you left. But don't come back. But please, can you come and stay with me? I'd rather choose to die 1,000 times. Not me. That's why I say John is, the canary in the coal mine. He is the poster boy of what humans who are stuck in their material world. Now, I experience that, maybe 20, 30 times a day. I mean, 20, 30% of my everyday has the influence of that kind of motif. But I, pray, meditate, and serve love's co creation. So, yeah, I make mistakes. Yeah, I can, like, oh, how do I get it? What's going on here? Then I have to step back, conscious awareness, and I kind of go, okay. Then I consciously intend do what God tells me to do, right? So I go do it. And that's what the Bible's good for. It's a good toolbox, right? Because especially the Old Testament. Old Testament really is in depth of, because it takes the human experience of about 20,000 years. Because you go look at that beginning part where it names all the and so begat so, and it shows how many years each one of those kings. I guess it's called kings. Where because I misplaced. I was looking for my Bible, and I was, I read it all the time. It should be kind of here or there or any of the other, but no, and one day I'll find it in a cardboard box someplace, right? So I just have to go and find myself another large print Bible. Anyway, but it's a toolbox, right? And and there are a lot of things online I can go, and I use the stuff online about the Bible like a roulette wheel, right? Because I just like go to that thing and go bloop, and it'll stop at you know, something, and I read it. Oh, okay, that's what God wants me to do. Okay, or at least think about, right? Because I am the decider, and it's co-creation. It's not like we are slaves. That's why God gave us a free will, because the burning bush, and God is. I don't like using that term because if you take it into the Sumerian, it means God, which means a God multiple entity that only serviced gold. The golden calf, the golden bull, all of that. You know, so there's that's why I call if I need a euphemistic name for God, I call it Bob, right? Because it can be God, switch God around, you got dog, right? Bob, you switch it around, it's still Bob, right? So anyway, how long we? Oh, hour and 11 minutes and 11 seconds. I love it when this happens. What time is it, and how much juice do we got left? Oh, 48%. 3 o'clock. Yeah, I think I've talked enough. It's four of you. Anybody got something to say? Jesus died. We are saved. Why no heaven already? This is heaven. You got to realize that. I mean, I've been out here in the deep green for 20 years. 18. Nobody was here. It was like being in the Garden of Eden, right? And now it's a garden, but the folk are. I mean, I was talking to this one guy, and it's like he's been here a number of years. So there's like 30 lots. They were all bought up. Nobody built anything because once people got here and they realized, and this is the property, as you can see, it's kind of steep, right? And there are no level spots. I got the most level spot, and nobody wanted it because it was a mud pit. And I spent a good 20 grand, excavating, flattening, taking the trees out so sun would hit it, put two big, you know, drains on either side, and then I put a whole bunch of French drains draining into those drains. I take it down to the stream, and I have four pads, as they call them, which means I have big stone like this there, and then crushed run on top of that. And that's a good place to build on top of. Put a foundation and a floor, and build a nice house, right? So I have four places you can build a nice house, right? I built a garage, and I have the man cave, right? And it doesn't cost me anything to live here. It costs me little. I mean, again, I live like a millionaire on $400 because I have no credit, and I only buy things I can afford. Period. I do not go, oh, I wish I had this. Oh, I want this. Oh, what? John said, I found a new software for my phone. I mean, he buys a new iPhone every time it comes out. He spends 2 or 3 grand on a phone. He's got like 20 iPhones. I mean, it's like I said, he is the poster boy of what's going on. Let's see. Jamie. Hi, Kadriel. Love and light. Yep. So, talking about service to God's, to love's co-creation, and watching, Elohim is a better word than God, right? I have to thank you for a very instructive chat the other day. Refreshing. Yep. Yep. Modern is so he's Martyred Artist. That's his website. He's starting um, um, a podcast. And I what the best of the weird. I think it's something like that, right? So, um, so he's gonna, we're gonna do a lot together on that. But he's going to interview other people too. I might get into Zoom so I could be there too as a presence. Um, but yes, because modern artist, he has gone, and why is that? He's his curriculum vitae is he has done the work. He has suffered. He has put himself through. Meaning, I was blessed to have all these great teachers from birth all the way to when did I start going on the hedonist? I got it 64, 10 years, so 54. 54, I stumbled into the desperate lawyer world and had already been in the itinerant scholar world for about 20 years, or maybe almost 30, from 1988 to 2004. What is that? So 24 years, give or take, whatever that is, 90, you know, somewhere between 20 and 24 years, or 18 and 24 years, somewhere around there. And the last 12 was, I had a really good, consultant itinerant scholar thing, and I was looking at really weird stuff, things that went bump in the night, stuff that I love um, putzing around with. And it was, I didn't have to sign in, I didn't have to become part of a club, but I was given access and authority within the quotes of whatever they got me there to look at. So that I was happy as a clam. But that kind of got me away from my aesthetic self, right? And got me into my scholarly self, which is, but in that movie, the last of Indiana Jones ones where he's at Area 51, and his teacher, who is that English guy, who started out his career in Alien and the first one, and he was the guy who got attacked by one of those creatures, and then they thought he was going to die, and then he was okay, and then he's eating all the stuff, and then the little guy pops out of his chest, whoever that guy was, right? And he was also the premier of the English government over the movie V, right? V for Vendetta. Anyway, that guy, right? So I was, so the character he plays is that scholar who kind of doesn't, everyone thinks he's crazy, but he's not. He's like, okay, I got a bit too far into this, so the way I can back out is just act crazy, and then they'll leave me alone. And I didn't quite do that. What I did was I went into the corporate world and took all those skill sets that I'd learned and went into that. So I didn't, because of who I am and lots of other things, esoteric wise, I don't really get addicted to things. I can go over the top because I'm an Aquarian and Aquarians go over the top, but I never, it took me, yes, I had to die and go into my life review, but I had already done, I already had a heart attack when my dad stabbed me in the heart, um, metaphorically. And I died, I was taking him someplace and he said some really cruel, mean things. And I knew that, okay, I've been with this guy now, 25 years. And I thought I was helping him come back to his, and he was, 50% of the time, he was his really good self. 25% of the time, he was still more that than his really terrible self, but he still had that like 10% really, oh, I'm going to nuke the world. I want to kill everyone because I didn't get what I want. I mean, he got everything he wanted, but it wasn't what he wanted because he didn't know what he wanted because he wouldn't serve love's co-creation, right? He was just serving his ego, right? But he was a great guy, so a good deal of that was, him being a great guy. That if this didn't happen, we'd never extricate ourselves from the Gordian knot of accumulated impressions. Yep, exactamundo. Yep. Oof. Um, Jamie, you out of here? Is that what you're saying to us? But stick around. Keep saying some interesting things so I can like have a game of ping pong of thought. So anyway, and as Jamie said, you have to go through this stuff, and I have scholarly, so I had to experience like what it would be like if I was a heroin addict or this, and I did. I can, and instead of using drugs and all of that because my body just won't do it. Spiritually, my body just doesn't do it. I can smoke a little boo, but that's about even that I can't, I don't. I mean, the first time I actually died, but my body was the first time I smoked some really good boo. Who dies from smoking marijuana? I have never heard of anyone. And then the morons I was with thought they could do CPR and they freaking broke my ribs, meaning the real I came back into my body. It was ouch, 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 ouch. And they took me to the hospital. And the guy said, well, you're okay. But these morons broke your ribs. Well, just have to tape it up and you'll have to take it easy for about the next month and a half. So, which was good because then I didn't have to work. I could just point to my ribs and they'd have to do all the work. So, anyway, like I said, things always work out. Thanks for the opportunity. Right. So, so, oh, Jamie, I love your house. Those pictures you sent were really good, and it's really interesting. The picture of you young. Oh, look at that. That's how I actually saw you in my mind's eye. And then when you showed the picture of you, how you look now, I thought that was like your father. And then I said, oh no, this is him just getting a little older. But I see you as that, and I saw you exactly as your younger self, and that's what you are. And I've hung out with lots of ancient people, and they would be like Hallie. I had a girlfriend when I was 17. She was 90 something or 89. And a good deal of time, she looked like she was 19. When we'd go out and dance and do all kinds of stuff, people, boy, your girlfriend's really hot, right? Not like, what are you? Yeah, wow. They wouldn't comment on the fact that she was. So, I mean, everything is relative, right? Everything is an illusion. And if we serve love's co-creation, we basically, someone said, I've been doing this, and where's heaven now? Well, it's right here. You know, we are expecting a transactional situation. Okay, I checked all the boxes off. Where's heaven now? Well, it's right here, right now. So I've lived here for 20 years, and 18 of them, it was like amazing because there was nobody here, just like now, meaning all the cockroaches are here. But it's interesting. They come, they spend an evening or afternoon, and then on the weekends they run off to some other place, right? And so they're not here. So it's quiet and nice in the weekends. And during the day, they're not here either. And they come back during the week, like around 5, 6 o'clock, where I'm already in my man cave, you know, making myself a sandwich and writing something. And I don't, and my man cave is, so down in the holler, I don't hear anything. They could be blaring the music and I don't hear it. They can be, riding their motorcycles. I don't really hear it. And so it's all good. So I put it, but when I come out and, the dirt road that goes up to the paved road that goes up to the little farmer road that goes up to the county road, they have destroyed them all. I mean, they really sucked when I was here, but I was the only guy here, so I would go up that dirt road that's like this at 5 miles an hour. They have to shoot up at 40, and they hit the gas right at my thing, so they made a ton of potholes. Right, if I don't fix them, which is no big deal, I just take the dirt that has spat out, and when it rains hard goes to the side. I just kind of rake it back into the thing and pack it down and throw some stone on it, and like I basically there's a mountain because now that all the rich people coming and these gigantic big dump trucks with 50 tons of stone come on, so it's crushing the road off the cliff. So the other side of the road is like just crumbling. So it is letting water go down. So a few miles away, where the county road is, it's basically fracking that mountain to fall down into the county road, which is the only way out of here. And so it's constantly falling down there, right? And so it's constantly blocking the highway both ways. And it's right where a highway comes down that hill and then makes a 90-degree turn, right? And if you do not slow down to like 10 miles an hour, back there before you're coming down the hill, the speed limit is 50. And then when you get at the top of the hill, it says go 35. And halfway through, it says go 25. And then just, a couple hundred yards before the 90-degree turn has all these hours going like this and says go 5 miles an hour. And there's a lake right there. And and in the last 2 years, 20 vehicles, two tractor trailers, and a bunch of other rich morons, people in their Lexuses and their Audis and their Teslas, have like wow right off, because they've come down that hill at 60, 90-degree turn. They can't make it because it goes right into. I mean, the lake is right there, right? And so then it goes back up the hill. And then over here is where people are building shit that's breaking up the earth, that's causing the water to go down, that's causing that whole side of the hill to go into the road. So, and there's other way back roads to get around. But the other day, I was heading into Johnson City, 30 miles away, and I came up my little dirt road, then hit the farmer road, then hit the little blacktop road, and then I was coming out onto that. Yeah, and it was stopped both ways, right? And there's a road not right where I am, but just that right over there, that a lot of people who are up there building houses, they come down, and I was like seeing them like just get into where the road. The guys weren't going anywhere because the road had collapsed on the other side of the hill, and so the road was stuck both ways, right? And because when it got stuck back behind them going the other way, a truck smashed into one of those 90-degree turns, but instead of going into the lake, smashed into a power pole, right? And so the traffic, and this is out in the middle of nowhere. There were about 300 cars, like in a parking lot on this small county road, and there were people over here trying to, get into that road. And then I'm like watching this, going, hmm. And all of a sudden, I started hearing horns behind me. There's 4 or 5 cars who came from the other side of that road before where I am, and they want to get on that road that's full of cars. So I just kind of said, fine. I just kind of did a U-turn and went back home, and no big deal. Then a few days later, I went to this restaurant. That's the only one left that's around here, and it's 3 miles. And anyway, it's not what it used to be, but it's totally been blinged out for rich people, right? It looks like a Cracker Barrel, where what it was originally was the old timer place that the Cracker Barrel copied. It's a faux version of what it was, and they destroyed what it was to build the faux version. And they used to have everything you ever needed, and now all they have is ring ding and yodels. They do have a little restaurant that is relatively fair, and the breakfast is $8. But anyway, so I went there and I was hearing all the people, the newly arrived cockroaches, go on about how you know it's terrible what's going on here. And I said, "Oh, so you're from here? So what, did you graduate from this high school or that? Oh no, I'm from Chicago, and then I went to California. I've been here like 6 months." I said, "So you're complaining about the people coming now, and you just got here 6 months ago?" "Oh yes, I bought a property over there." I said, "So you live on a road that says there's no water?" And he goes, "Well, I didn't know that before I bought it." I said, "So what water do you get?" "Well, I get it trucked in." I said, "Okay." So it's like, okay, you really are a moron, right? Let's see. There's always a way things have a habit of working out. Yes. If you remember me, life may not be easy, but will never be insurmountable. Yes, if you're serving love's co-creation, that is definitely true. The avatar of the age, love personified. Okay. Just sharing. I got nothing for sale. Yep. Yes. Your Jesus remind me of Winston Swall. How I love you. How I love you, oh, my dear old Swanee. Yep. Swanee. Yeah, Swanee, how I love you, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. Yep, that's me, your Swanee. So, what else can we say? There's five of you there. Come on, how about some? There's five of you. Let's see, five thumbs up. Come on, guys, you can do it. I know you can do it. How much time do we got left? We're not quite in the red zone yet. So, how about throwing some in the old PayPal? Yeah, I have had. I know it still kind of works. I've had four people, and I want to thank the four people who have put something in my PayPal since Thanksgiving. In the last couple of weeks, nothing has arrived, but that's okay. I again live like a millionaire on $400 a month. I'm not worrying about it, but it's always nice to have a little cushion there in that thing. So anybody can throw something in there. That's the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Dude awake 42 at Gmail. Jamie, do you have Google Docs? Because if you do, if you could email me the dudeawake42 at Gmail, dudeawake42 at Gmail, and say, hi, Al, this is me, Jamie. I will email you a couple of my novels. I would love your feedback on them. So, Solaronics, Tunes, Solaronics, he. Okay, so, come on, let's get some more thumbs up. There's six of you now. Come on, you can do it. I know you can do it. Just hit that thumbs up. Let's have a little something going on. Way down along the Swanee River. Yep. And I'm actually, what is that river? And that's in it's right on the border of Georgia and Florida. It's right where the art school is. It used to be a dead little town, Savannah, Georgia. Yep. It's right on the border there. I love that town. Some really good friends, artist friends of mine, went there in the 70s, 80s, and started art school. And now they own the whole thing. And then they sold it all and they retired to, I think, France or Italy or someplace there. Well, do. Thank you. Let's see. Wait, will do. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail and Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Come on, some more thumbs up, kids. Right. So where were we in the storytelling? And that's me. I'm so one of the scholastic guys. You're all over the place. You're all over the place. Well, that's because the world is all over the place. It's not in. It's nothing is linear. I just look, and that's one guy said. I just look at the flow, the one to one. It's all linear. It's all going in a flow. No, the world does not do that. Sorry. Now there are streams, yes, right, but that's not the world isn't a flow because there's so many threads because there is no time. Time is not linear. You know, time is everywhere all the time, right? It's and I've in one of my novels, I get into the watchers and the time dialectic, and that's we have this thing where we separate ourselves, right? And that's one of the big problems. Savannah always had a good feeling about that place, but I know nothing about it. Well, it is. I mean, one of the problems with Savannah is it's one of those places where the nuclear it is a target because we have on the East Coast that is where we base our nuclear submarines, our boomers, right? So it is. There's ever a nuclear exchange, that place will just be a hole in the ground. But until then, it is this town that, like I said, it was this very dusty. It was all about fishing and crawdads and shrimp and that, but they weren't down in the bayou. I mean, that was like the top of it, right? And they had other fishing that they did. And then what happened was that the river, they had the Savannah Clinch River nuclear. That's where we had our breeder reactors, and we had that because it took the nuclear fuel and nuclear submarines. Why we don't give that technology away is that it uses weapon instead of having the kind of uranium oxide that they use in commercial reactors, which is like 40%. They have weapons grade uranium in those naval ships. So if you were to get any of those naval ships, like all the Russian submarines that are just mothballed, they got hundreds of them in the North Sea there. Some knowledgeable terrorists were to just go, and they'd have nobody watching them. Go and just start taking that fuel rods out of those ships. They'd have nuclear weapons. It's like a joke. There, so many people have weapons around. But see, the thing is, if you were to detonate something made from that stuff, um, the explosion would make isotopes, right? And those isotopes, you could say, oh, the weapon grade material came from this sub. I mean, they have the fingerprints of every kind of weapons grade stuff where where it was made, where it came from, blah blah blah. So if anything ever blows up, you know really who started it off, and that's one reason we don't have that because it would, even though ISIS may use it to do something or other, you could see whether it came from you know the United States or from Russia or England or whoever had, and we a lot of South Korea, Taiwan, Japan all have nuclear reactors, lots of them, and they have weapons grade, and so they have high technology. So Taiwan, for China to invade um, Taiwan, they would have to stage men, materials, ships, you name it. Would take them a good 6 months, and so we would know 6 months before China invaded Taiwan that they were right. They couldn't do it like that. Just like we knew Russia was going into Ukraine because they put those guys up there, and for a good 3 months before it, I mean, 7 months before it, they put a third of what they were going to put and had an exercise, because we're pissed off. We don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO, right? Well, we're pissed off. What happened with the Minsk agreement? Well, they didn't go along with the accord. That's why it didn't happen, right? They were half the reason why, yes, the CIA had the color revolution, blah, blah, blah. But before that, Russia put their boy in, meaning it was just a replay of Afghanistan, right? But with white people and heavy industry, you know? And Mariupol, when Russia obliterated Mariupol, they obliterated all of their they have all these metals, right? Bauxite and all kinds of things. Makes aluminum, makes titanium, makes all of these kind of special metals that Russia makes a lot of money out of. But they have all the raw materials. Back in the day with Soviet Union, they built the industry to make that stuff in Mariupol. And so what did they do? They blew the shit out of it. It's like people, oh, they got buses that are working now, but every building is into dust. All the industry that was there no longer exists and will cost hundreds of billions to put it back into what it was. And it will take 40 years, right? Because it took 60 to build it, right? And it was built, the first half of it was built back in the Soviet Union days before World War II. So they built it. So when the Germans invade, when anybody would invade that place, they could still turn out the metals they needed. So, And that's what the Soviet Union was. That all these countries where Russia took all of their raw materials and sent them to different places so no one could attack any one place in Russia and stop their manufacturing, right? But when the Soviet Union fell apart and all those countries became separate entities, that's what happened to it. Russia didn't have the means of production there. They had a little bit, and then they just went totally for the Benjamins, and Dick Cheney and the Koch brothers came in and redid all of their oil industry. And it's basically run by Dick Cheney and the oil industry. So all they do is the Americans left, and their Russian ability to, back when this thing started and the pipeline died, and they said, "Oh, we need this turbine part from Canada, um, and because you put this embargo on us, we can't do it." And that was truthful, right? That was honest. Now, they normally have two or three spare parts, waiting to put in there because they're making some money at sending that stuff. So they might have had a spare part, but it was truthful about because the guys who fixed it were Canadian and they weren't there. They had left, just like all of the people who do the software and building the IT and the semiconductors in China. They all left. What is the 30,000-year half life of nuclear stuff? Anyway, people live in Hiroshima. Yes, exactly. Well, you got to. It's that's why the cancer rate is through the. I mean, before Trinity, the first test of a nuclear weapon, cancer was here. Now, after we detonated maybe 1,000 in the air, cancer is like up the screen up here. Why is that? It's environmental. All the shit we're doing isn't killing the earth. Earth is we're like salt on a potato chip. It's killing us, not killing the earth, right? And the heating up of the earth is yes, we do put particle matter and carbon dioxide, but if we didn't cut all the trees down, they could take care of that, right? But what is really happening? Why are the poles melting? Why is, Alaska hotter than, South California, Mexico? Is because the sun is doing stuff that if you're watching the sun, if you watch, Diamond on, Oppenheimer Ranch, and if you watch Thor, those guys keep a really strong eye on the sun because that's where our weather comes from. Right? And Diamond was going on about what the sun's doing right now, and he's saying the East Coast is going to have a world-changing March that will be. We thought you know Christmas Eve, 60 degrees below zero was really terrible. March is kind of where, and we're in March, and it's a nice day today. So it means probably March, April into May, and the East Coast is probably in 2 weeks or so. And this ain't written in stone. A 50-50 shot at the worst northeaster in history, and like kind of what California is experiencing, like biblical amounts of snow and and rain and all the rest and wind, and our East Coast is not ready for it. It's its whole infrastructure, especially all of that. The 60 million people that live on the coast from Boston down to Florida. The 1/3 of the population. You know, what happened in Florida, what happened in Kentucky, those were places where the population wasn't really as thick as what's. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but could. Things are lining up. I'll give you a report from go to Oppenheimer Ranch. Diamond is always giving a good report on that, and also Thor. They're both really good guys, and those guys you can throw something on their PayPal because I entertain. I inform too. Martyred artist. I took a dump. Okay, that's I understand. Sometimes nature calls and I can't. Sometimes when I go, I gotta go, especially when I'm in my elevator music office. There's sometimes I just leave. The music's playing and and you can hear the people having lunch, and I have to run to the facilities, right? So, how are we doing for juice? We're getting there. We're almost in the red zone. I got about 10, 15 minutes. Um, so yes, go check out Martyred Artist. Martyred Artist, what are you calling your podcast? It's seriously strange, or what are you calling it? Uh, Tell the folk. Give the folk your IDs, your digital presence, right? And remember, I am, get a hold of me at my email, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. And you're already here at Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. How about some more thumbs up? How about telling some more people, how about having, let's see, Strongest of the Strange. Yep, that's it. Strongest of the Strange. They not lost on me. Yep. Uh, uh, isn't life strange? Yep. It is. I think that's smarted artists. Isn't that why you are calling it strongest of the strange? Because you're talking about issues that are really relative, present, and strong, right? So, the strongest of the strange. Now, I have a predilection towards things going bump in the night, which are strange too. Most people. And when you are, serving love's co-creation, no matter. I mean, I've been in some of the strangest, weirdest, most dangerous situations, and I'm still here. Died 7 times, shot twice, still here. And, everything I went through, all of that, which people go, my God, I can't believe you went through that. Well, it got me, I got to the other side and was in a much better place on the other side. And it kind of motivated. So the annoyances that are around me are nothing compared to that kind of stuff. And I've been in war zones, it's like, this is nothing compared to that. But it's definitely sharpening my pencil. I mean, it's really easy to be loving and empathetic and kind and considerate when you live in heaven and there's nobody around you except fluffy bunnies and dragons and butterflies and and the things with the horns on their head, not devils but unicorns, those guys. So and they all left. Even Mr. Bunny left. Mr. Squirrel left. They all left. The only ones that are left are the little mice that are the watchers that you saw in what was that movie and that radio show about living out in section 4. They wrote a book about it. It was a radio show, and then they made a movie. Right? What was that? And when the end of everything, yes, Bigfoot is out here. Yeah, he's being sued by Ah, no, Bigfoot is my freaking lawyer. So anyway, yeah, Bigfoot is all right. Right. So anyway, come on, more. It's 5 of you there, and there's 3 thumbs up. Yeah. I just want to have a little more presence on the internet. I mean, I'm on the World Wide Web. I am that pebble in the shamanic pool. That's why I keep doing this. But let's see. Cool. Sanders Bigfoot. Yeah. Colonel Sanders Bigfoot. Nah, not really. He's just Colonel Sanders. I mean, he actually has little toes. I mean, he has the smallest feet. I mean, he's a big, fat boy, maybe 5'7", weighs 300 pounds, and his feet are that big. That means his penis. Colonel Big Toe. Maybe. Oh, I don't really go into financial anything with that guy. Like I said, he does stuff that the average person would get really annoyed with and get upset. Me, I again, it sharpens my patience pencil, and it always turns out for the better. And I think Martyred Artist said it. If when things you wait long enough, and if you're in the karmic groove, it all works out. It's not a big deal, right? And you get to learn something, right? So with all the shit that's going on around here, it's not a big deal. And I could even stay here, or not so much stay here, but keep this property because it gives me a foothold to keep all my stuff and have a place to come back. And it really is not expensive, and it's beautiful. It's still beautiful. And like these people are so they can't have a moment without rushing around and being blah, 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 blah." So they're never here. So it's not quite what it was for 18 years when because all the animals once these morons came the vibration was like this to them, and those animals weren't your average animals. They just kind of moved to the holler 5, 10 miles away when there's nobody, and but they'll come because when I was in Brazil and I was dropped in on indigenous people that never I was the first white person they ever saw, and I was with this one tribe that didn't speak. They were telepathic. Period. Right. And so at the first couple of weeks, it was a lot of what do they call that thing you play that game when you usually try to get people to say a word and you're whatever they call that. Anyway, it was but it really pretty much that's why I was sent in there. The Nazis who sent me in there knew Dr. Bidenoff. He said, "Well, you'll figure it out." And they gave me a suit that was impermeable, and I changed my diet so I could eat what was ever in the woods. I stopped eating cheeseburgers and Coca-Cola about a month before I went in there, right? And basically, I fasted, drank water, and I drank this green goo that you could take the most shittiest water in this very weird thermos and drop these green pills in and do that and turn it on and hit a button and it would turn it into like a superfood, right? And you would get all the water you needed and all the nutrition you needed. And you could just do that and survive on it very nicely. And so I did. Right? Last 3 weeks before they would drop me in, that's all I would have. I sent this little thermos, and I would, like a muddy puddle, or at the end of a septic system, I could take that water, put this little green pool, put the thing, screw it on tight, hit the button, and kind of hum, and there'd be a yellow light and red light, yellow light, green light, glug 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 glug. So, and that was in 1987, 86, somewhere around there. So, um, you know, that was that story. But, and don't believe a word I say. Are we in the red zone yet? Almost in a second or two. So, okay, I'm going to leave now. And when it hits 58 seconds, 1 hour and 58 minutes and 58 seconds, I'm going to unzip. So I'll speak to you tomorrow, probably in the morning-ish time. Okay, doke. Love you guys. Till then, let us say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. And in every day take the peace of the earth and make it stronger with love's co-creation. Amen. Right there on 58 seconds. I love it when that works out. Okay, gang. Catch you later. Remember, dudeawake42 at Gmail. Till then, I'll see you tomorrow in the AM.